An event had taken place recently. I am dealing with only contemporaneous issues. An event had taken place recently on the release of a book. And the focus of the book by a former judge of the Supreme Court was on basic structure. The day was chosen as 14th April, associated with Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. The judge, former judge of the Supreme Court and illustrious author of the book, referred to 13th April. He narrated an incident that had taken place on 13th April at Jallianwala Bagh before independence, where our people were killed, massacred, injured, and by our own people, led by General Dyer. And then he came to the doctrine of basic structure, that this cannot happen now because of this doctrine. Examine for a moment this doctrine Keshavanand Bharati gave to us. 13 judges of the Supreme Court assembled. The division was vertical 7:6. It can't be more than that. The judgment was on 24th April 1973. And this, according to the author, is our savior. But after we had this basic structure doctrine, a prime minister, to save her seat, imposed emergency on 25th June 1975. The judge has forgotten. The audience had forgotten. It was supposed to be engaging discourse, inquisitorial. No one asked a question कि ये जो अवतार था, ये जो अमृत था, जो ऐसी घटनाओं पर अंकुश लगा देगा और जिसकी इतनी महामंडन किया जा रहा था, जलियांवाला बाग के रेफरेंस में वो भूल गए ताजा इतिहास को। 24th अप्रैल 73, और आप देखिए 2 साल पूरे होते ही emergency was claimed on 25th June. Lakhs of people were put behind the bars, and it was up to 21st March 1977. Lakhs of people. With this basic structure, Supreme Court ruled, you have no fundamental rights during emergency. This is so much for your tribute to basic structure. The impregnability of basic structure was so demolished to pieces by the highest court of the land, reversing judgments of 9 high courts that in one voice held fundamental rights cannot be on holiday during emergency. There has to be access to judiciary, highest court of land. A former judge, being author of the book, eulogizing the doctrine, the complete bulwark against assault on citizen rights, was so oblivious of what happened during his lifetime. Just imagine. We are being sold these narratives at a critical time because we don't ask questions. I wish somebody in the audience should have asked the question, what happened to your basic structure doctrine in 1975? 1st June 1984, what happened in Delhi? Our freedom-loving people, they were singled out in thousands. What happened at the Golden Temple? What I'm saying is, don't take these narratives at face value. These narratives are dangerous narratives. These narratives must be exposed by discerning minds like young people. You must learn to question, because we have iconized the people through mechanism which is not rational. We have given celebrated status to people without examining. We think what they say is right. No one asked the author, while he was judge of the Supreme Court, why the collegium system did not work. We must learn to ask questions. Because in democracy, this is our most basic right. We cannot have a situation where you direct President of India. And on what basis? The only right you have under the Constitution is to interpret the Constitution under Article 145(3). There it has to be 5 judges or more, boys and girls. When Article 145(3) was there, the number of judges in the Supreme Court was 8. 5 out of 8. Now 5 out of 30 and odd. But forget about it. The judges who issued a mandamus virtually to the President and presented a scenario it will be law of the land have forgotten the power of the Constitution. How can that combination of judges deal with something under Article 145(3) is preserved? It was then for 5 out of 8. We need to make amends in that also now. 5 out of 8 would mean interpretation will be by majority. Or 5 constitutes more than majority in 8. But leave that aside. Article 142. Article 142 has become a nuclear missile against democratic forces. Available to judiciary 24/7. My worries were at a very highest level. I never thought in my life I'll have the occasion to see it. President of India is a very elevated position. President takes oath to preserve, protect and defend the Constitution. This oath is taken only by President and her appointees, the governors. Everyone, the Prime Minister, the Vice President, the ministers, the parliamentarians, the judges, they take oaths to abide by the Constitution. But to defend the Constitution, to preserve the Constitution, to protect the Constitution, that is the oath of the President of India. The Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces. Boys and girls, if you look at the Indian Constitution, when Parliament is defined, according to you, Parliament is Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha. No. Parliament, the first part is the President. Second and third are Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. There is a directive to the President by a recent judgment. Where are we heading? What is happening in the country? We have to be extremely sensitive. It is not a question of someone filing a review or not. We never bargained for democracy for this day. President being called upon to decide in a time-bound manner, and if not, becomes law. So we have judges who will legislate, who will perform executive functions, who will act as super parliament, and absolutely have no accountability because law of the land does not apply to them. Let me tell you, boys and girls, every parliamentarian, and why parliamentarian? Every candidate in any election to assembly or parliament is required to declare assets. Judges don't do it. Some do, some don't. Time has come. Boys and girls, let me take to you early this year. On January 27, 2025, a 7-member Lokpas bench, headed by a former Supreme Court judge, ruled it possessed the jurisdiction to investigate corruption complaints against High Court judges. Suo motu cognizance was taken. And mind you, if you go to other judicial dispensations in other countries that have democracies thriving. Suo motu cognizance is unknown to them. And then it was stayed on one ground, independence of judiciary. This independence कोई कवच नहीं है. This independence is not some kind of impregnable cover against inquiry, investigation, probe. Institutions thrive with transparency, with their being probed. The surest way to degenerate an institution or an individual is to give total guarantee there will be no inquiry, no scrutiny, no probe.